Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. PJ Wall. I'm from Trinity College in Dublin, and I'm working with the Integrity Horizons 2020 project. I would like to warmly welcome you and thank you for joining us today for an extended interview with Dr. Dorian Karatzas. And this interview is part of the Integrity European Student Convention 2021. Dr. Karatzas is head of the European Commission's Directorate General for Research and Innovation, and he's been working with topics around research integrity for many years. Dorian, we are delighted to have you as part of the European Student Convention. Thank you so much for joining us. You are very welcome today.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure and a great honor to be with you. A great project. Thank you very much.
I'd like to start by asking you just a very basic question. How did you become interested in research integrity originally?
As a student, we were always exposed to how to do the right indexing in the references that we did in the paper. So that was my first introduction to integrity. How to do the right thing, how to give the right credit to papers that you use and you reference in your own paper. As part of the ethics sector in DG Research and Development in the European Commission, ethics encapsulated for us the issues related to research integrity. And more specifically, during Horizon 2020, which is our big funding project started, the European Parliament said to us that you have to pay extra attention to research integrity. So my interests were both the personal experience and, of course, what the legislator wanted us to do and the member states, of course.
Okay, how would you describe research integrity very, very simply? Because this means, my experience would tell me that research integrity means different things to different people. So if I was to put you on the spot to give me the simplest possible definition of research integrity, what would you say?
Thank you for putting me in this very, very uncomfortable spot, because as you know, there is no agreement. We have a general agreement of what it is, but we don't have much that we have agreed on, at least at the European and at the international level. If I had to talk to my son and try to explain to him what research integrity is, I would simply say, do the right thing. And everybody understands what the right thing is. We have learned that from school, from home, from our parents, from our family. That would be the simplest way. In research, of course, it takes many, many other dimensions, but still doing the right thing encapsulates everything that we are trying to do in research integrity.
Okay, that's a really good explanation, and I want to explore that a little bit further if we can. But just before we do that, you mentioned the importance of research integrity to the European Commission, and in fact, your role, the job you do with the European Commission. Just before we get into research integrity, could you tell us a little bit more about that? The importance, the specific importance of this topic to the European Commission, and about your role and the job that you do every day.
In my daily job, right, we have to make sure that all the funds that we spend as European Commission in supporting research in the member states and beyond are properly used. This is taxpayers' money. It comes especially after, it's always hard to find. You always have to fight for research money. But especially after a period of economic difficulties that we went through in Europe, the last 10 years, let's say, grosso modo, we always have to convince the policymakers and the people that hold the purse, the public purse, that the money that we take and we spend in research are done for a good reason. Yes, we all agree that, and is done in a proper way. So the citizens, that their money, their taxes we are using, feel comfortable and trust what we are doing. This is extremely important for an international organization like the European Commission, because not only we spend money, we fund good research, but we also have to promote the way that this money is spent correctly. So education, training, promotion of research integrity is as important as making sure that the money that we spend is spent correctly. So this is part of the two hats that I'm wearing, if you like. Spend the money correctly and make sure that we know, we educate, we promote the principles of research integrity in order for the younger generation of researchers, but already researchers that are working right now in the field, do it properly and do it in a way that enhances the impact of research, promotes the research endeavor.
Okay, I think that's very clear. That sounds like a very interesting position and a very interesting job that you have. But maybe the obvious question that comes from that, I suppose, to go back to your definition of research integrity or your explanation, is just about this notion of doing the right thing. So how do we know that? And I think that this maybe sounds like a silly question, but I think when we build in complexity with technology or complexity in pharmaceutical research, these lines can get blurred. So how do we know what the right thing is?
We have agreements. We have agreements at the individual level, so at the laboratory level. We have agreements at school level, so we all know what the rules of the game are. If you take a test, you're not supposed to look from the guy next or the girl that is sitting next to you. You're not supposed to copy them unless the test requires collaboration. We all know what the basic rules are. In science, in order for this endeavor to be more effective, we have very elaborate rules about what is the right thing. And research integrity is a great part of this rule Bible that we have, this rule book that we have. And all this is to push the responsible conduct of research, that you, just because you cannot do whatever you like. There is a framework under which you're supposed to operate. And also these rules dictate not only your personal conduct in the laboratory vis-a-vis the topic of your research, but also your conduct vis-a-vis your colleagues, other researchers, students, your hierarchy, and of course, at the end of the day, your responsibility towards science in general. Everybody does research because we all come with a dream. We want to change the world. We want to have an impact in the world. We want to contribute. And all our activities have and should have an impact on society.
Yeah, I would very much agree with that. That is my own exact idea of research integrity. But I do think sometimes the issues tend to get blurred around the edges, particularly with technology. So, for example, if let's just take the idea of plagiarism, and which is one of the biggest research integrity ethics we have in our integrity project. The lines get a little bit blurred. It's very clear if you copy from somebody else in an exam, that's copying, that's unethical. It's not the right thing to do. But what happens if you get help from your parents with homework? And let's just extend that a little bit. What happens if you use an electronic device, perhaps like one of these voice assistants, to get a little bit of help with your homework? So I'm not looking for specific answers. I know there are no black and white answers, but it must be very difficult to try to foresee what these issues will be, particularly when technology is advancing so fast and the advent of artificial intelligence that we can use so freely.
Absolutely. There is a lot of gray area around the edges, but I think deep down inside, we know ourselves as individuals what the right direction of the answer will be. Maybe we do not know the answer, but we know the right direction. For example, if, as you said, and that happens very frequently, parents help young students with their homework. If that happens in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 students out of a class of 20, then you immediately introduce a point of equity, balance, fairness. If all the parents did it, then you change the discussion. Can all the parents provide the same type of assistance? So it's never a clear yes or no answer. But deep down inside, as a student, you know that if you get assistance from somewhere that is not of equal access to other students, of equal access, not that they will go to get it, but they can ask for it, then you know you're doing something that you're not supposed to do. And if you do that, before you do it, you better ask. Research integrity is not rules that are inscribed in stone necessarily. Research integrity teaches all of us, me, you, the students, the PhDs, the researchers, to ask before they do, to check before they do. Never assume that the assumption that they have made themselves about an action that they are going to engage is always the right one. So because you know a little bit that there might be items that you need to check a little bit further, the only thing that we are saying, or at least the bottom line of responsible conduct of research, is never assume, ask.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And the people who you would ask then, Dorian, you would advise asking parents, teachers, supervisors, lecturers, because I think that kind of peer advice and supervisor advice is very important.
Absolutely. It varies according to the different stages of education that you're in. Okay, and it varies. You can always ask your parents, no matter how, or your spouse, no matter where you are, because you want their experience, you want their input. Of course, this is not excluded, but later on, when you go into the research, if you go to the academic environment, you always have someone to ask. Peers and people that are your mentors or your professors or your teachers. We have to be very careful, because we are not trying to claim that the advice that you will get will always be the right one, right? But that's what we are trying to do with educational and promotion projects like integrity. You know, you are taught the basics, you know the basics in a sense from the common experience that we have amassed as a society, and then you build on it. You don't go into asking these questions as a white book. You have the experience, you have some information, and you build on that information as you grow professionally in the career path that you have chosen.
Yeah, so again, I agree fully with that. And let me take this opportunity actually to highlight our own Integrity Project website, where there are significant amounts of resources to maybe find out about some of these issues. The address of that website is H2020integrity.eu, H2020integrity.eu.
And the H stands for Horizon. It's Horizon 2020. It's the program that the European Commission has put in place to finance research at the European level.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a very important program. Of course, that's a huge program. I think it was billions of euros, which has now been replaced by Horizon Europe.
Yes, indeed.
But you can find out, if you want to find out more information about this, you certainly can. Would you recommend any other resources where people could find out more about research integrity, Dorian?
There are a lot of national resources that we are not even aware of. I think you should try to find the information that is available in your own country, in your own institution, in your own school. There are a lot of national activities, but obviously it's very difficult to keep track of because there are many. One other very good resource that we are also trying to support and finance is the Embassy of Good Science. And if you Google Embassy of Good Science, then you will be able to find a lot of information on research integrity and teaching material, etc. And of course, if you want to expand a little bit more, there are always interesting literature, books and essays that discuss research integrity issue. They don't call it research integrity, but they describe the life in the laboratory, because life in the laboratory is between humans. We are the scientists are just a copy of the society. They are not different from the rest of society. So the passions, the love, the engagement, the different relations that are formed in the laboratory because of competition, because of jealousy, because of all the other interesting things that describe the human behavior, exist also in the laboratory. So, you know, there is a lot of interesting work that is going on also in the public sphere that is not necessarily related to research, from literature, where you can learn a lot of interesting things also and enrich your knowledge base.
Yes, I think what we're really talking about here is empowerment of everybody. The Integrity Project, as you know, addresses integrity issues around high school or secondary school students, up through undergraduate students and all the way through to PhD, and actually beyond that to researchers at an early stage, but also at a reasonably senior stage. So the core of all of the work that we've been trying to do in integrity has pivoted around the notion of empowering people to actually know about these issues and to start thinking about what, as you said, what is right and what is wrong. Because I still think that even though that sounds like a very different thing, we all know right and wrong. And I think we do at the extreme, the extremities of those questions.
Yes.
But when we move into the middle, it can be a little bit more difficult.
Indeed. And even popular press, newspapers are full of stories that describe, well, usually they call it research misconduct. So if you Google research misconduct, you will find a lot of stories, personal stories of research misconduct. I don't like to use the term because at the end of the day, we try to promote research integrity to avoid research misconduct, but research misconduct kind of brings together the different interests of, for example, journalists. It's much easier to write about a bad apple than to describe all the good apples in the basket. But it's interesting. It's a very good learning tool because all these cases create the different scenarios that you might be using in order to promote responsible conduct of research. What to avoid, what not to do, what you have to keep in mind. You know, how do you deal with research misconduct issues in the area where you are, in your laboratory, in your classroom. So it is an important element to also look at the negative aspects, although we don't like to highlight them.
Yeah, and absolutely. As somebody who works full-time in a third-level institution, I see these issues every day. I work with many different groups of students, and they see these issues every day.
Yes.
So Dorian, I'd be very interested to ask, as you know, we have 3 cohorts of students who will be attending the European Student Convention and who will perhaps be watching the recording of this video. Could I take you through each of those cohorts, and perhaps you could speak a little bit about what you think are the major research integrity issues that apply per cohort? Because a lot of particularly high school students say to me, these are issues that I don't have to worry about yet. They're issues, I'm not actually doing research as such yet, but I still think these issues are highly relevant. So perhaps I'll bring you through each of the cohorts, and we'll maybe start with the high school students, if that's okay.
It is a major challenge, obviously, because you're trying to discuss an issue that appears at a higher level or a more advanced level of professional life, also later education stages, and you try to bring it down to an earlier stage of education, which is the high school students. It is clear, and that was our experience from interacting with university students and postdocs, so people that have finished their first round of education, they have been starting either their graduate studies, postgraduate studies. What it was the most surprising for us was the level of lack of knowledge, I would say. That even at people that they were early career researchers, the issue of research integrity and research misconduct some years ago when we started working was not very common knowledge. Everybody could understand what we were talking about, but for example, they were never taught it at school. They were never explained what are the rules that frame the behavior in the laboratory and the behavior within the environment where they study, work, and spend a lot of hours of their day. And then we thought, hold on a minute, everybody's talking about research integrity and research misconduct for a long, long time. It's not an issue that arose, the last 5 years or 10 years. Although indeed the last 10 years, there was a jump in interest, both from funders, from institutions, universities, etc., but also from popular press. So there were a lot more issues paid into research integrity. So we thought, okay, if there is such lack of knowledge among the more advanced researchers and scientists, maybe the solution is to start a little bit earlier, and that's actually what gave birth to the funding for the project integrity, that we wanted to extend the know-how and the exposure of the basic principles of responsible research conduct. Obviously, in high school is not responsible research conduct, but is responsible conduct. How do you behave in the classroom towards your peers, towards your students, the other students, towards the professor, in tests? Do you plagiarize? Do you steal somebody else's work? It is very common in the age of Wikipedia, and all of us have stories about this. I have stories because I have 3 sons, and it was an effort to tell them, this is not your knowledge. If you go to Wikipedia and you have a research project, a paper to write for your classroom in any subject, you can Google it, you have it ready. You can copy it and you present it as the paper. They don't claim that is theirs. They say, we found it on the internet. What they do not know is that if they found it in somebody else's job, they have to give credit. And in between the different credits that they give to other people, they have also to write their own thoughts. And this is the difference between copying a total paper or somebody else's work, but also discussing somebody else's work and interjecting your own opinions and your own thoughts. So research integrity is basically doing the right thing and give credit to where credit is due. So if you take it from the Wikipedia, you reference the Wikipedia. If you are too lazy and you don't want to do it, you are not behaving responsibly. And this is something that we can learn very early. That's why we started extending to high school students. And let's not forget that a lot of these high schools also have laboratories. A lot of the students do work in physics, chemistry, biology, and they have to work in a laboratory type setting. So they should learn early on what are the appropriate behaviors, even if you do a simple experiment or if you work with other colleagues in in a simple for high school, simple for us, not simple for high school. Let's be careful. If you work on an experiment in a laboratory setting at the school, it's not a fair analogy, but I will use it. It's like in any sport. You start from the lower level, and then if you're good, you're progressing, and then you go further on, and further on, you become a professional football player. As a young football player, or any sport, but let's take football. As a football player, when you're 5 years old, you learn different things from what you learn when you're 10, 15, 20, etc. You always have to practice. Nothing comes for free. You get better because you're practicing. You are getting better because you follow the instructions of your coaches. And then you slowly graduate to a higher level. Messi and Ronaldo, to use 2 examples, they still practice 4 hours a day. It's a little, or 5 or 6, whatever. It's the same thing in the 3 tiers that you just described. At the high school, you learn basic stuff, you learn how to behave. So it's the basic behavior within the high school. You build in the background knowledge and the basis for which you're going to be using to build on. At university, you start learning more, you're becoming more specialized, depending on the direction that you want to use. And then as a postgraduate student, you specialize even further. So you are learning even more new skills, and you develop your own capacity to improve. So it's not a fair analogy, but I think it's a good analogy in the 3 different levels that you have to go through in order to develop all the necessary skills for responsible conduct.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think that is actually a very good analogy, because research integrity issues do apply at all levels. Anyone who does homework, anyone who has the potential to work in groups, all high school students do that, particularly where I'm based here in Ireland. They do that every day. So with those kinds of jobs come research integrity issues. I think, as you say, it is a little bit clearer as you go into undergraduate and PhD level, but research integrity applies to all cohorts of students. And I think in all subjects also. You've mentioned labs and maybe the natural sciences, but I'm a computer scientist, but I also refer to myself as a social scientist because I'm interested in people. And I think that even those kinds of subjects bring with them research integrity challenges as well.
Indeed, absolutely. It's no discipline is immune to the challenges and of misconduct, and of course to the promotion that is required. New disciplines like computer science and artificial intelligence require a new look, because the methods are changing. The methodology of doing research and collaborating is changing. That can be true also in other disciplines, but artificial intelligence in particular will put us in front of the necessity to have a fresh look at what we are doing to promote responsible research. It's not going to change the basic premise, but the details, the fuzzy areas, the gray areas maybe need to be looked at carefully. What does it mean? What is the definition within the discipline? I mean, philosophy, it's a different, totally different approach to research integrity, to plagiarism, to all this. I'm not saying that you should condone it, but it's a different discipline where, for example, while in physics and in medicine, you might have 20 co-authors in a paper, right? 30 co-authors in a paper. In philosophy and some of the social sciences, you might have one or two. In philosophy, you have one usually. So even this, the publication ethics, the way you behave towards the other people that you work with might be slightly different. And you need to adjust the responsible conduct according to the area where in which you work. As a matter of fact, very interestingly, we had this discussion when the European Code for Research Integrity was drafted in 2016, revisited in 2016 and 17, and it was clear that this code that we have published with ALEA, the European Academy, the European Academies, could not satisfy the needs of all the interested parties, of all the disciplines. So the code says each discipline should look hard and carefully at their own processes, at their own needs, and on the basis of general principles, they should develop their own codes and practices for responsible conduct.
Yes, I think that's really important, actually. And to supplement that, in the integrity project, as you know, Dorian, we're producing a lot of materials for high school, for undergraduate levels, and also for PhD students. So those materials will be ready in 2022, and they'll be available to everybody. But as well as that, I think it's really important to keep these issues at the forefront of everybody in schools and universities. With initiatives like Integrity Thursdays, we've had, I know Mariette van den Hoven has led that initiative in University of Utrecht and in Amsterdam as well. We have all sorts of discussions and meetings just talking about these issues, just to open it up and to have people explore these issues, because my own experience would be, and I'd be interested to hear what your experience is, Dorian, but my own experience would be that sometimes we tend to be very busy at work. We tend to have deadlines where we have lots of meetings to go to these days. So issues of research integrity get pushed aside. I know they shouldn't, but they tend to get lost in busy lives. What would be your experience of that?
It is exactly as you describe it, and it's the same challenge everywhere, not only the laboratory, but in the work that I'm doing also in the public sector. Those challenges are there. Sometimes you're so much under pressure you have deadlines to run after, that it's easy to cut corners. There is no magic solution there. Obviously, what everybody says is that the best support that we have and the more comfortable you are at doing the right thing in the environment where you work, the easier it is to be correct, to do the right thing. We also have to come to grips with the fact that we are used to be afraid of failure. And failure should not be a dirty word in research, at least. Failure is what teaches us to go forward. It is impossible to do the right design of the experiment first time out. You have to repeat it. That's the essence of research. And that's the essence of a very complicated set of knowledge that we have out there that we have to examine. We have to decipher. We have to push the frontiers forward. We all, though, get educated and grow up to be in an environment where I will not say that failure is not tolerated, but failure is not accepted. It would be much easier if we learn, especially in an academic environment, to say, we learn from our mistakes. We say it in theoretical description of what the research and science should be. You read it all the time. So, science and research is about falsification. You have to find the arguments to go against the hypothesis that might be dominant at the time that you do your research. But and probably you have seen that, there is a movement now among a lot of especially young researchers to have CVs of failures. Not only the successes, but also what I have done, why it has failed, and the why it is the important thing. It's not because I wanted it to fail, but there were some assumptions that they were wrong, and the experiment or the effort or what I was trying to put in place did not work. So first of all, we have to deal with the fear of failure. So we have to say failure is good, just admit it, think about it, and do it better next time, right? Improve the methodology. The other thing is that we have to learn in the academic environment, but also in the environment where I work, and this is always very challenging to say, that we have to give people a second chance, especially in a third chance sometimes, especially in areas where they are pushing the frontiers of knowledge and the frontiers of research, and where the pressure and the mistakes can be made. We should not sacrifice immediately everybody that has committed a mistake. I'm not talking about grave misconduct here. Huh? I'm not talking about misappropriation of funds or, really the really dark side of research misconduct. But especially with the younger generation, I think we have to be able to engage in discussion and take the opportunity that failures or mistakes is an educational tool. There is you try and you do the best with what you have, and if you are lucky, you work in an environment or an institution that can support you. And that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to promote research integrity also at the institutional level, so institutions become better at accepting failure, at promoting research integrity, at following the codes that have said, the institutions themselves, following the codes that they have accepted as codes of responsible conduct, in changing the culture of the institution. One person alone cannot usually change the culture, but a lot of people together in an institution, in an institutional setting, can.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I agree that we need more freedom to fail, because failure can sometimes result in great learning. Yes. So I think just to create that space is very important. And in the context of research integrity, I think we've all made mistakes. I know I certainly have in the past, which I now look back on, and it's something that I will try not to do again. So I think there is great learning from failure. I'm conscious that we're coming to the end of our time, Dorian. So I wanted to finish up by asking you one or two things. So overall, I think we both agree that creating the space within our school, within our workplace, within our university, to just take a step back and be aware of these issues is very important. So any project where we generate knowledge and create materials like the Integrity Project, I think that has the potential to contribute a lot to these issues. So maybe the advice then would be to make a little bit of space to discuss, to create an environment where it's okay to fail. It's okay to admit that you don't know what to do in a specific instance, and rely on mentors, rely on superiors. I think that's very important. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will also add there the support of your peers, because that's how you build your own support group. If you know that you're not the only person that has these challenges, sometimes the isolation is the worst advisor for research integrity and the best advisor for research misconduct. Those are common challenges, and everybody shares in the classroom, in the laboratory, in the office. So I think this kind of more freedom to discuss with peers and hierarchy, superiors, or trusted friends is a very good thing.
Yes, absolutely. I think it is, and I think that's really, really important to create that space with superiors, peers, as you mentioned. Just finally, Dorian, I'd just like to ask you, you're obviously extremely passionate about these issues, and that comes across in speaking with you. And I'm sure you've transferred that passion to most of the people who are watching this interview. So thank you very much for that. But just to finish off, are you optimistic about the future for research integrity? Are we doing a good job? Are we going in the right direction, do you think?
I'm very optimistic. We have covered, at least from my side, we covered a lot of ground the last 10 years that we are engaging ourselves in research integrity. I'm very optimistic because I also see a change in attitudes. And I'm very optimistic because I see that the young generation of students and researchers care about those issues a lot more than we thought, or we gave them credit for. And this is part of being in the research environment. And I put myself as a research manager into the research environment because I have been a researcher, but also because I care about this work. You are involved in research because you're passionate. You fall in love with it. It's not only potentially a good professional, maybe not a good professional engagement, but the beginning is the love, the special relationship that you build with a topic that you like. With research integrity, we try, and I think it's working slowly, but it's working, to nurture the special relationship throughout the career. So after a while, after 20 years in research, if it is possible to keep the same love for the topic or the endeavor, that will be the success. So I'm very positive. You see, of course, that the challenges are increasing, but with a suitable group of people that understand the topic, that know how to use it correctly, the responsible conduct of research, things will improve even more in the future. I would like to think.
Yes, I agree. I think they will, and that is an absolutely wonderful note to finish this interview. I wish we could go on longer because it's a fascinating conversation, and I know that both of us would encourage people watching this to empower. We use the word empower, so please empower yourself with knowledge about these issues, because it does take a lot to research. You do have to have that passion. You do have to have that commitment. So that's wonderful, Dorian. Thank you so much. Just one last mention of our research integrity website, where you can find you can actually find this interview there as well, and you can find lots of information about research integrity. It's H2020integrity.eu. And as Dorian and I say, please try to find out more about these issues. And I think it can only be a good thing if we all do that. So thank you very much again, Dorian. I really, really do appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. and hopefully we will see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.